Welcome to my channel Free Concepts CHM. This video is the third part of the series of digital communication techniques where we will see pulse modulation, then comparing the pulse modulation methods. So there are different methods like pulse amplitude modulation, pulse width modulation and pulse position modulation. Pulse modulation. Pulse modulation is the process of changing a binary pulse signal to represent the information to be transmitted. The primary benefits of transmitting information by binary techniques arise from the great noise tolerance and the ability to regenerate the degraded signal. Any noise that gets added to the binary signal along the way is usually clipped off. Further, any distortion of the signal can be eliminated by reshaping the signal with the help of a Schmitt trigger, comparator or a similar kind of circuit. If information can be transmitted on a carrier consisting of binary pulses, these aspects of binary techniques can be used to improve the quality of communications. Pulse modulation techniques were developed to take advantage of these qualities. The information signal, which is usually analog signal, it is used to modify a binary or a pulsed carrier signal in some way. With pulse modulation, the carrier is not transmitted continuously, but in short bursts whose duration and amplitude correspond to the modulation. The duty cycle of the carrier is usually made short so that the carrier is off for a longer time than the bursts. This arrangement allows the average carrier power to remain low even when high peak powers are involved. For a given average power, the peak power pulses can travel a longer distance and more effectively overcome any noise in the system. There are four basic forms of pulse modulation. First is PAM, second is PWM, third is PPM and fourth is PCM. Comparing the pulse modulation methods. The diagram shows the different pulse modulation methods. Both the diagrams, in this diagram also, the different that is PWM signal and PPM signals are shown. The PAM signal in the figure is a series of constant width pulses. The pulse width is remaining the same, whose amplitude you can see it is varying in accordance with this analog signal, which we can call as a message signal. The pulses are usually narrow compared to the period of the sampling. This means that the duty cycle is low. The PWM signal is binary in amplitude. It has only two states you can see. The width or the duration of the pulses, it is varying. You can see in this diagram, it is changing according to the amplitude of this analog signal. So when this amplitude of the analog signal is increasing, the pulse width is increasing. When the amplitude of the analog signal is decreasing, the pulse width is decreasing. In pulse position modulation, PPM, the position of the pulses, we can see it is changing in according to the amplitude of the analog signal. So that can be understood in this diagram more clearly, how the position is changing. As the amplitude is increasing, the position is changing. Position of the pulse is changing. When the amplitude is increasing, it is changing in this manner. When it is decreasing, it is changing in this manner. So the pulses are very narrow. These pulse signals may be transmitted in a baseband form, but in most applications they modulate a high frequency radio carrier. Pulse amplitude modulation. Here in the pulse amplitude modulation, the amplitude of the pulses of the carrier pulse train, it is varied in accordance with the amplitude of the modulating signal. So this is the message signal, or we can also call it as a modulating signal. As its amplitude is increasing, the amplitude of the pulses is also changing. Pulse width modulation. It is also called as pulse duration modulation or pulse length modulation. The width of the pulses of the carrier is varying in accordance with the modulating signal. So the width, as the amplitude is increasing, amplitude of the modulating signal is increasing, the pulse width is increasing. As the modulating voltage decreases, the pulse width decreases. Pulse position modulation. Here both the amplitude and the width of the pulse, they are remaining constant. So you can see the width is remaining constant. It's not like PWM. So the pulse width is remaining constant. The amplitude is also remaining constant. Only the position from where it starts, the on time, from where the pulse starts, that position is changing, and it is changing, or it is varying according to the instantaneous value of the modulating signal. So when you compare the pulse modulation methods of the 4 types of pulse modulation, PAM is the simplest and the least expensive to implement. On the other hand, because the pulses vary in amplitude, they are far more susceptible to noise and clipping techniques. To eliminate the noise, so cannot be used, because they would also remove the modulation. PWM and PPM are binary, and therefore clipping can be used to reduce the noise level. Although the techniques of pulse modulation have been known for decades, they are no longer widely used. Of the 3 types, PWM is the most common one. So examples are like, can be used for remote control purposes, example in model airplanes, boats and cars. PWM methods are also used in switch mode power supplies, motor speed control, etc. Today, pulse modulation techniques have been largely superseded by more advanced digital techniques such as pulse code modulation, that is PCM, in which actual binary numbers representing the digital data are transmitted. Thank you for watching this video.